A, approve agenda as submitted. B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. C, receive and place all files and file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. D, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on December 19th, 2022, as on file in the city clerk's office. E, approval of the treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $665,311.18. Approval of the Boswell report of claims in the amount of $57,237.32. Resolution number 6986, appointing Charles Hubka to the Beatrice Airport Advisory Board. Resolution number 6987, appointing Steve Hartley to the Beatrice Board of Public Works. Resolution number 6988, executing an agreement renewal to the maintenance agreement number 4 with the Nebraska Department of Transportation for the period of January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023, as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Resolution number 6989, entering into a farm lease with Jared Bauman and Mike Bauman for farming purposes. And K, resolution number 6990, entering into a hay lease with Ethan Wright and Steve Wright for haying purposes. Is there anything that anybody would like to pull off the consent agenda? Seeing none. Mr. McLean.
I move the items listed on the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and are ratified as presented.
Second.
Your vote, please. Motion passes. There are no public hearings or bids tonight. For resolution, we have one resolution tonight. Resolution number 6991, appointing Chester McGrury III as Community Development Director.
I move the resolution number 6991 be passed and adopted.
I'll second it.
Discussion.
So everybody knows that Mr. Merrow has resigned, taken a different position, and so we had an opening in the Community Development Department for the director position. We looked at some internal candidates, conducted some interviews among some council members, and the recommendation was to appoint Mr. McGrury to this position. Mr. McGrury's been the Code Compliance Officer with City of Beatrice since 2017, and so pending this vote, we look forward to having him come aboard.
Chad, how much more do you gotta have before you're totally certified?
I have 10 certifications that I absolutely have to get, and
There
Timeline?
are a number of certifications. I mean, the number of certifications you can receive through the ICC, the International Code Council, is unlimited, I think. The agreement that we have is Mr. McGrury will obtain 10 of those within the next 3 years. We'll obtain a minimum of 3 per year each year to make sure he's continuing to make progress on that. So,
Now, are we going to put out a deal to take his job over? And
So-
we moved him up?
So one of the things we do, obviously, we have budgeted for a third person in that office. Generally, that's left up to the department head to determine how he wants to backfill. So I think that's one thing that Chet will sit down and evaluate as to how he wants to backfill his position. Is it another code compliance officer? Is it a secretary? Is it some other hybrid position? I think that's up for Chet to determine as he moves forward.
Is he the only one in there now?
No, it's him and Nick.
Nick. Welcome to the big leagues, Chet.
Any discussion, further discussion by the council? From the public? Seeing none, your vote, please. And that passes 8-0.
Mayor, Chet, congratulations on that, buddy. I think you have got a lot of support around this table up here. Okay, so put that department together. There's a lot of things that need to be done. That's where the rubber meets the road, in my opinion, and we're looking forward to seeing what you're going to do with that.
And if you need us, ask us.
There are no ordinance tonight. Now we have the public forum. The purpose of the public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the city council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the city council this time. Anyone here for the public forum? All right, we'll move into item 7. discussions and reports. One discussion item tonight, it's not one that we'll vote on, but we're getting input, and that would be the discussion regarding one-way streets.
Yeah, so several months ago, the conversations started up here at this council level asking the traffic committee to take a look at one-way streets, in particular, a couple of them here in town. Traffic committee is the police chief, street superintendent, city attorney, city engineer, and myself. We sit on that, kind of overlook some of those different traffic suggestions that come up and make recommendations to this body. And in particular, the traffic committee was asked to look at the one-way street on 7th, 8th, 2nd Street from Court to Market, and then the stop sign at 4th and Court and 5th and Court. So those are kind of things we were asked to kind of review. If you had a chance to kind of look at the memo, you kind of see what the recommendations are. But starting at 2nd Street, our recommendation was to leave 2nd Street one way at this point, south of Court Street, while it's part of the truck route. If the Highway 136 reroute goes through and if some other things change, you may come back and make some different recommendations. But at this point, that was our recommendation. The stop sign at 4th Street, or 4th and Court and 5th and Court, the stop lights that are there, our recommendation was to leave them as stoplights today, not to remove them and put stop signs in for north and southbound traffic. The reason being is when you start looking at sight triangles and the vision that you need at the stop signs, you'd have to remove a number of parking stalls. Quite frankly, you remove about half a block of parking stalls in each direction. We thought that was probably more than we wanted to do in the downtown era. Now, again, if the highway gets moved and Court Street now becomes a local street, we may come back and look to revisit that, because then those stoplights would not be necessary and you could put four-way stops in, and then you have a different answer at that point. I think in your packet you see some of the vision triangles that James put together of what that would look like and the number of stalls you would lose, and it was significant. And so that's why we did not recommend those two things.
Was part of the discussion about that, to look at changing it back to diagonal parking?
No, we did not look at diagonal parking at all along.
As I looked at the diagram and I saw that, I think you'd lose a lot less if it was diagonal parking. And I understand the problem with that because of the size of vehicles and things that used to be.
Right.
But, because when it's diagonal parking, vehicles were smaller when they first did it. But if the reroute does occur, if it do happen, that would be my suggestion, that you go to stop signs and diagonal parking. And I think that fixes your problem.
Right, and I think those are things that we talk to Olson's as we do that study through the downtown and kind of come back and look to see what Court Street looks like if the highway gets rerouted.
Right.
I think those are things we bring up there.
Okay.
That brought us to 7th and 8th Streets. As you read through the memo, the recommendation of the traffic committee was to change both of those back to two-way traffic. We just felt that would help traffic flow better in those areas. But that's why we brought it back to you guys for discussion and then hopefully some guidance of how you want us to move forward.
You said 7th and 8th?
7th and 8th.
Okay. The traffic committee has studied 7th and 8th. Since I've been on the council, a total of 4 times. The last time it was studied was 6 to 7 years ago. So I took it on myself 6 or 7 years ago to contact households along those 2 streets. I contacted 126 households. Wow. Out of the 126 households, 1 was for changing it to two-way. 2 didn't care. 123 people said they wanted it left alone. So here it is, 7 years later. This seems to be brought up every 5 to 7 years. I don't know why they want to change those. They're not creating a problem. Everybody wants them to stay. That I haven't been contacted by anyone up there. Apparently Mike has by a couple. But instead of going the full route of all the time I spent the last time, I called up 30 people this time. 30 out of 30 wants those streets left alone. Now, we are voted on here to represent our people in our wards. Those people don't want their stuff changed. So for the sake of changing something, just for the sake of changing it, it's ridiculous. We need to concentrate on stuff that need our attention. These don't need to be changed. They are not creating a problem. So we're just revisiting it again. And if this doesn't pass this time, probably 4 to 5, 6 years down the line, we'll revisit it again. But I think if our folks don't want it changed, I don't think we should change it.
You say I was contacted by a couple individuals on both those streets, one on 8th, one on 7th, and they are for changing it. They had safety concerns. One of them lives a little further north, and they said the speeds get pretty excessive as they get to the north side because it's one way, and he is concerned about the speeds. He told me he has to put a sprinkler out in his yard to get the traffic to slow down when he's mowing the side of his street. So, and he said he does have to pull out and looks for traffic running the wrong direction on that street because they do get confused. And so there is. I know Rich has contacted guys, but there is a few that are concerned about it. So I'm kind of interested to see what the rest of you think. Personally, when I first moved here, I thought we had a few too many one-way streets in this town, but I know they're there for a reason and stuff. But I'd be interested to see what the rest of you guys think.
Well, I brought this up again, and I feel it needs to be revisited. First of all, Rich, and I don't mean to offend you, but I don't think you contacted 30 people.
Well, I think you're wrong.
Okay, I'm just telling that
Did
flat out.
anybody contact you?
I have the floor. Okay, so it doesn't mean you can't drive back. It doesn't mean you can't still drive down the street. It's going to be two-way traffic. It just means it slows you down. You can't drive down 7th Street at 60 miles an hour. Last time we had a traffic study done, and they had the meters out to see how many cars went over it. Police department had their radar thing out. I think the average speed was north of 40 miles an hour. The highest speed recorded was just under 70 on that street. And I think the lowest speed was just over 15. But they're residential streets. They're not highways. And I understand that people don't like change. Okay. I guess I understand that some people don't like change. I don't have a problem with it. You're not taking anything away from anybody. You can still use the street. Okay? I'm not proposing that you take parking off of it. I'm not proposing that. I'm just proposing that you can drive both directions on it. I guess I understand the concern with 7th Street. I don't. 8th Street has very little traffic in comparison. I just want you to consider this. It is a safety issue. Every time this has been brought up, and I haven't brought it up every time, but every time this has been brought up, the traffic committee and the chief of police has said this is a safety issue. When I first brought it up, I worked in Beatrice, I drove and delivered in Beatrice, and it's a safety issue. To get out of your car on this street, it's a problem. I'm surprised people haven't gotten hit. I really, truly am. This doesn't change anything about the street other than it reduces the speed on the street. That's all it changes. It truly does. You can still drive down it. You just get to drive down it both ways. So that's really where I'm at. I was under the impression that we're going to vote on it tonight, but if you want to discuss it and bring it back and discuss it some more before we vote, I'm okay with that too. But this isn't a matter of changing something just to change something. This is a matter of public safety.
Yeah, Bob, who all's on the committee that talked about this?
Well,
The traffic committee?
Yeah,
The traffic committee, again, is the chief of police, city engineer, street superintendent, city attorney, and myself.
would it be fair to ask our chief to comment on this about the safety issues? I know you don't want to. But wouldn't it be fair to ask him if he could do that? Sorry.
come on up.
Okay, so
You gotta tell everybody who you are.
That is really loud.
You gotta tell everybody who
John
you are.
Hickman, Chief of Police.
There you go.
So, I think that when I moved here, one thing that I noticed was it was very confusing, I thought, with the one-way streets. I noticed that. I will say, as far as traffic accident-wise, we don't really have any traffic accidents on 7th or 8th Street. So we haven't really had any problem. We also don't get a lot of traffic complaints on those streets. As far as speeding, we do catch speeders on those streets. But I think in fairness, we also catch speeders on the two-way streets. So when we looked at it, we're looking at to see, is there, would it affect it if we changed it? Is there any issues with us changing it? Things of that nature. And what my vote on the committee was, that we could go to a two-way street without any issues for us. I don't know if in the past they had some safety issues there. Since I've been the chief here, we haven't really had anything, so.
So you're stating, Chief, that there are speeders on other residential streets other than these two particular streets?
I think that'd be fair to say, yes, sir.
Yeah,
Maybe so,
the
too.
traffic issues,
And one of them, I have the floor, Ted. And one of those are, well, let's see. Down a gravel road on my side of town, I caught a kid and he had to be doing at least 70. So that pretty well negates Ted's. Now, how many wrecks have you said we've had on?
I don't have an
7th
exact
and 8th?
number. It's,
If I remember correctly, when we changed the streets on Fifth Street from a one-way to a two-way, for a year or two or three there, we had quite a few wrecks on those streets.
We had one.
I think there was more than that. I think we'll go back and check. I think there was more than that. But, like I said, our constituents that I've talked to, and I have talked to them, Ted, and they don't want it changed, and I don't think there's a change for change's sake.
Other discussion?
so, Bob, John, I'm sorry, Bob. John, the traffic incidents were intersection accidents at 8th and Lincoln and 7th and Lincoln. That's, in the last studies,
the
that's,
ones that I'm aware of currently, yes.
yeah, and I could be wrong, but I think at one time, the 8th and Lincoln intersection had more accidents. It was the most, intersection with the most accidents in the community. And I could be wrong about that, but I think at one time it was, so. But it's, that's where it changes, so. It was the intersection, actually. It isn't because of the traffic.
And I'm not sure what I'm not sure what the numbers are. I mean, I could
Yeah.
get the numbers of wrecks for you, but I don't have the numbers with me.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, the only ones that I'm personally aware of right this minute would be in that 7th and 8th Lincoln area.
right.
And then closer down towards Monroe or one end of the neighborhood, the most northern street there.
Dorsey?
Dorsey, I'm sorry. I live right off of it, and I can't remember the name of it. Off of Dorsey.
Chief, on the 7th and 8th Street at Lincoln, aren't those the streets that have the trees in the city's right-of-way?
7th and 8th in Lincoln, no. The issue we've had there in the past is why we've added additional stop signs there. You had an island there for a long time on 7th and 8th. Those islands have now been removed, but both of them, I think, have 2 or 3 stop signs. For whatever reason, people have a tendency to kind of run those intersections, and we had accidents there.
Oops.
Well, just from experience at this afternoon, actually this morning I came down here to visit with the city clerk, and I went down 8th Street, and as I approached Lincoln Street, car turned and headed north on 8th Street right at me. And it's not the first time that's happened. I see it happen down at McDonald's where people come up Monroe and they turn up 7th Street to get into McDonald's there. So, I mean, it's not something that, I don't know if they're not marked properly or what, but, I had to stop and move over so that, truck could get by me. And it was an in-town truck, so.
Over here?
I mean, I know it's our street, but has the county been in contact with us, or we've been in contact with them with their parking there? I know it'd probably just turn around, but I noticed in one of the other times that we had had been presented, the county was contacted. I just wondered if they had any say in this at all, or?
We talked to the county, I think,
Care.
years ago about it, and it would be a matter of just basically restriping part of that parking lot that they have there.
Be a big deal.
And if that's something we need to work with them, we'd certainly work with them on that.
I just think we need to work with them whenever we can.
Chief, thank you. From the public, come on up.
Sorry, John.
My name's Aaron Schoen. I actually live out of town, but I have a business here in town. The reason I want to talk right now is just because I'm for what the people want, like Rich said. If you truly did talk to 30 people and that's what they want, that's what I feel you guys kind of got to look at. One of the things regarding Mr. Fairbanks' comment about the top speeds that were involved there, has anyone considered it could be a first responder going to emergency scene, could be a pursuit? Those are things that machine necessarily don't record what it is. So yeah, it might have been a 70 mile an hour, but that might be your ambulance trying to save somebody's life, taking the fastest way they can to the hospital. Yes, people do drive opposite ways on the one-ways once in a while, but most of the time, it's either a lazy person, which I've experienced, because they just don't want to do the right thing, because they don't care, and you're not going to fix problems like that. Or it's out-of-town people that are a little bit confused. The other thing I wanted to comment on the stoplights on Court Street, why would we put a four-way stop on a street where almost, I bet you 95% of your traffic's on Court Street? Why not just put the stop signs, if we were to move the highway, on just the 5th and 4th, instead of stopping all 95% of the traffic shouldn't have to stop for the 5%. That's just my 2 cents. I mean, I'm law enforcement, so, you know, I see this stuff. And yeah, people do drive the wrong way, but mostly because it's either lazy and they don't care. That's all I got.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? All right. Thank you. I think we had a good discussion. We'll just have to decide what our next steps are. Tobias?
Yeah, if you guys want, we can bring back a resolution that addresses 7th, addresses 8th, addresses neither of them, both of them. Just kind of need some direction of what you guys would like us to do. And then if it is addressing 7th or 8th, is it Court to Monroe? Is it Lincoln to Monroe? Is it kind of where you want us to start and stop?
Tobias, the traffic committee made a recommendation. I would suggest that you bring that back to the council, the recommendation that they had, and we can vote it up or vote it down.
The only, if we bring the ordinance up for vote, that we have to, instead of suspending the rules and, making the change in one meeting, could we spread that out so we'll give the public more chance, or?
It would be a resolution, so it'd be a
Oh,
vote.
so, okay.
You got quite a few councilmen here that have some time. I noticed your traffic committee did not have one single councilman on it. I think that a councilman or two should be on traffic committees and such as that. Because we are the ones that when something is passed, we're the first line that's going to get chewed on it. Well, maybe not. Toby gets chewed quite a bit too. But I think from now on that there should be some council representation on some of these committees. So we have a little input.
Okay.
If we did a public forum with the Lincoln Street corridor change, why don't we do something with the 7th and 8th Street people just to see? Not saying Rich talked to 156 total people of his 126 and his other 30, but at least you would actually have them there to do that. I don't disagree with what Ted said either, that the traffic committee made a recommendation based off of the stuff that they seen, but also I think it'd be fair to talk with the citizens of the 7th and 8th Street corridor from whether it's Dorsey or Monroe all the way to Court and hear from them and then put everything together.
You know, you do understand that everybody in Beatrice gets to drive on the streets.
Well, I
It
understand
isn't
that,
just
but-
the street, didn't the people that just live there.
Yeah, I mean, well
It affects
then,
everyone.
if we're gonna do that, then I want my road to a one-way street that only goes west. Because everybody that drives on my street speeds to the east, so I want them all to go west. I mean, if that's the way we're gonna play the game, I wanna hear from the people on 7th and 8th Street that Rich says he talked to, the 156 people.
I don't disagree.
And while we're doing the streets, I'd like mine paved.
You can get yours paved.
Go ahead, we'll,
I've tried.
we'll vote that in
I've
a
tried.
heartbeat, just so you have to pay for it.
Okay. Well, we certainly will take this under advisement. I mean, Tim, that's not a bad suggestion. And Rich, it's not a bad suggestion to have city council member on the traffic committee. As far as a vote, we'll give that some thought and get back with you. All right. That brings us to the close of our meeting. The next regular city council meeting is January 16th, 2023 at 7 p.m. And this room here. And there will be a work session on January 23rd. And I'd like to thank all of the council members for turning in their goals. So we'll have that back for everybody on our work session on January 23rd. Mr. McLean.
I move the city council meeting be adjourned at 7:26 PM.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned.
Yeah.